Oh, goody.
Alright, what's going on everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we are looking at some day 1 decks for Silver Samurai. Silver Samurai is tonight's new card release and the final release for this Dakin season, and he is coming in at Series 5. Silver Samurai is a 4-cost 5 power that reads, on reveal, each player discards the lowest power card from their hand. This card has a lot of potential. I think it is going to rival or maybe even exceed X23 as the most powerful card of the month. Seems like it is just going to be a naturally strong include in stature-based decks, and I think he will even find a home in some discard shells as well. We can also see the Spotlight cache for this week. I think this one's kind of decent, but I think we're starting to notice a little bit of a trend here where they put 2 desirable things in a Spotlight cache, and then the third thing is a bit less desirable. I do think last week had kind of the best of the Spotlight cache, because I think all 3 of the cards were desirable there. This one, obviously, Silver Samurai looks really good. Kitty Pride, a lot of people got Kitty for free, but that was a while ago, so I think there are a lot of players out there who never did get Kitty, and for those players, she's still Series 5. So if you haven't gotten Kitty, she's one of the best 1-drops in the game, and I think if you're interested in Samurai and are missing Kitty, that makes this week an easy open for you. The variant, also really good. I love the Silver Samurai mech and the Wedding Kitty Pride, so I personally find that a bit enticing for me. And then Spider-Man 2099. This is the underwhelming one of the bunch. I think it's a fun card, but it's not really a good card. And even the big buff to Ghost Spider, reducing its mana cost to 1, hasn't been enough for this card to really see much play at all, unfortunately. And to be honest, and this is obviously subjective, I really don't like the variant they chose for it either. I recently got the Dan Hip for it, and I like that like 10 times better than the variant they chose to feature here. Maybe it'll look better animated, but honestly, really kind of hoping to dodge 2099 this week personally. And since Samurai is a Series 5 card, I think unless you have a very, very large stockpile of tokens, using your caches is probably going to be the better way to acquire this card. Now, if you're a bit on the fence, not totally sold on the card, I think it's always a good thing to give it a little time, give it a few days. We got a whole week to see how this plays out. So there's no need to buy it on day 1 if you aren't 100% convinced, and there's no harm giving it a little time to see how the meta shakes out, and if Silver Samurai ends up being a meta-relevant card, or just one that works in decks you find fun or interesting. I'm a big fan of the Stature deck though, so I'm going to be picking this up for that alone, and I think there's other interesting potential with this in kind of a discard deck that aims to attack your opponent's hand size. So diving into our day 1 decks here, first up we have a Zabu Darkhawk deck with Stature and Black Bolt. Stature is definitely the card that comes to mind with Silver Samurai, as previously we only really had Black Bolt and the not very played Moon Knight to enable getting Stature to her 1 cost, which is always really good. So Silver Samurai acts as some much needed redundancy and interaction in this deck, and acts as some needed consistency in order to be able to get Stature down for her reduced cost. Obviously, this is a Zabu deck, so we're running a critical mass of 4-drops, including Darkhawk, Enchantress, Miles Morales, Rockslide, and of course Silver Samurai himself, Korg to round out our rock package, Zabu to reduce our 4-drops, Jeff and Silk for flexibility, and to give us the ability to weave in a cheap Miles Morales into one of our turns. The fact that we can get both Miles and Stature to 1 cost seems super strong, as we can do some pretty cool plays on the final turn, like a 4-drop and then Stature Miles, or weave in some 2-drops like Silk and Jeff, as well as both Stature and Miles. You do have to be a little bit careful with this deck, as Silver Samurai will be discarding a card from your hand, and if Darkhawk is in your hand, well, he is the lowest power card. So do want to be mindful of that. This is actually the reason we're running Cosmo in this deck, as I think there will be times where we need to get the Darkhawk out earlier in order to play Samurai, so having a way where we can potentially protect the Hawk seems really good. Then we have a deck that leans a little bit more into the fact that Silver Samurai is discarding one of our own cards. So still running the Zabu Darkhawk package here, however, we're going a little bit greedier with it. We're finding space for Iron Lad, which has some pretty good hits in this deck, such as Iron Man. Obviously, Black Bolt or Silver Samurai can hit Darkhawk, can hit one of our rocks. Even Zabu or Jeff are pretty good. Black Cat might seem like kind of a weird inclusion here. However, if we draw her on turn 3, she's really, really good. 3/7, no downside, pretty strong. And if we do happen to discard her, we end up being able to bring her back with Ghost Rider, Ghost Rider not only has synergy with Zabu here, but he helps mitigate the downside of the fact that we might be discarding a impactful card from our Silver Samurai, namely here Iron Man or Darkhawk. So this can kind of turn his downside into an upside, where we're discarding a card from the opponent's hand, we're discarding a big card from our hand, and then we bring that card back with Ghost Rider for a surprise tempo swing. This deck doesn't really run much interaction outside of the hand discard, but the overall goal is to be outstatting our opponents, so hopefully you won't need that interaction if we're doing powerful things to get a lot of stats into play, and hopefully end up with larger numbers than the opponent's able to compete with. And the last stature deck of the bunch is a little bit different. So this one features X23. The idea with this deck is we're a bit of a ramp deck, so we're trying to cheat stuff out ahead of curve. So Zabu obviously helps us cheat out these 4-drops. We can use Colleen to discard X23 to cheat out a 5-drop or a 6-drop before we are normally able to. Wave allows us to cheat out some of our big 6s, mainly Doom or Odin. We also are able to hit Doom off of the Iron Lad, so that gives him a bit of a boost. And Wave can also just be good as a potential lockout piece. Play Colleen and Wave on turn 5, and then force the opponent into only playing 1 card on their final turn. While we can go wide with Doom or rely on Captain Marvel to swing around the victory at the end of the game. And we finally have a Dakin deck here. So Dakin I've found to be kind of underwhelming overall. Not the worst card, but not the best, but I think this might be a decent home for him. So this is a much more aggressive, focused discard list. The idea with this one is we are trying to discard our X23, our Wolverine, and our Swarm to get a bunch of high-tempo plays going on. We have a few different discard outlets here. Obviously, Colleen will discard our lowest cost card, so that's nice to be able to target a bit. Moon Knight is a random discard, but gives a bit of redundancy. And I think given that we have a bunch of cards that benefit from discarding and the opponent usually does not, it'll usually be more of a positive than a negative for this deck. And Silver Samurai and Black Bolt for more ripping cards from the opponent's hand, ripping stuff from our hand that we want to get discarded anyway, and enabling the stature. We run a small move package here of Jeff and Silk, mainly to activate Miles. This also just really high tempo, getting a 1 cost 5 power and a 1 cost 6 power is a pretty big threat towards the end of the game. And then Dakin just gives us a bit more fuel of stuff to discard, gets pumped up to a 3/8, so he's conveniently out of Shang-Chi range, and just seems to make a lot of sense in this deck that's trying to very aggressively discard a lot of cards. Odin also powerful here, not only with Doom or our lad copying Doom, but against decks that are trying to play a lot of cards, we can potentially wave early to cheat out Odin, rebuy the wave effect, play another big 6-drop, and just generally be far ahead of our opponent. Samurai is really nice here. He gives us another way to activate stature, gives us another way to activate this X23 to ramp us. Just seems like a very natural include for this type of deck and gives that much needed resiliency, and the fact that we're just ripping a card from the opponent's hand is generally a strong thing to be doing. And then we have Ghost Samurai. So the idea with this one is we are going to be discarding our own Kitty Pryde, Wolverine, or one of our big things like Professor X or Infinite, bring it back with Ghost Rider, get good tempo from discarding X23 and Wolverine alongside Colleen. Kitty Pryde and Angela also help us maintain that good tempo as they're 2 of the best early game cards in the whole game. Jeff for that added flexibility and synergy with Professor X, and Silver Samurai to give us an additional way to discard a card from our hand as well as the opponent's, and Silver Samurai to give us a way to discard a card from both our and our opponent's hand. This can be particularly useful going into turn 5, as that extra energy, if we discard X23, will end up letting us be able to play Kitty Pryde and America Chavez on the final turn. Ghost Rider is pretty sweet in this kind of shell. Mainly we're trying to discard the Infinite and bring him back with Ghost Rider. However, sometimes discarding Professor X and bringing him back with Ghost Rider on turn 4 is really sweet. And obviously, if we discard X23 on turn 3 with Colleen Wing, that can allow us to cheat out X on 4 as well. Chavez is really nice for the consistency in this deck. We really value getting our early game cards in the beginning of the game. And if we do get that ramp from X23 on turn 5, getting to play a pretty big kitty alongside Chavez is a pretty powerful way to close out the game. And there we have it. That is going to wrap it up for our day 1 Silver Samurai decks. So let me know what you think about this one. Are you excited for it? Are you not? Are you picking it up? I'd love to hear it in the comments below. And if you want to see the other stuff that's coming up in the following weeks, so you have a better idea of what to save those spotlight caches for, I'm going to be having a video come out on September 1st going over everything we know about the upcoming spotlights. So if you want a little bit more of an informed decision on should I use my caches now, should I save them, want to know what's coming in the month ahead, definitely stay tuned for that video. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.